Good afternoon, everyone. Go ahead and call this Utah Board of Water Resources meeting to order. It is a little bit after 1 p.m. on Thursday, June 20th, 2024, and we are meeting at the Department of Natural Resources. I am the chair of the Board of Water Resources this year. My name is Juliet Tennert, and I represent Salt Lake and Tooele. Before we jump into our agenda, we'll go ahead and have the board members introduce themselves. All board members are present in person except for Dana Van Horn, who is participating virtually, and I'll have her introduce herself after we go through the board members who are here.
Mike Davis, the Provo River Drainage, and I'm the vice chair.
Kyle Stevens, Weber River Drainage.
Charles Holmgren, Bear River Basin.
Brian Steed, Great Salt Lake.
Lane Ipson, Sevier River.
Spencer Jones, Lower Colorado River.
Randy Crozier, Green River District.
Dana Van Horn, Upper Colorado.
All right, thank you. And with Dana Van Horn participating virtually, the way we will take action is I will just ask for a vote of the board that's here in person, and then Dana, I'll come to you to make sure that we hear what your vote is. Does that work okay for you?
That's great.
All right, excellent, thank you. Let's see, before we jump into the agenda, I will just note that we had an incredibly informative briefing meeting, as we always do, just ahead of this meeting. That happens usually the morning of board meeting. So we met here at 10 a.m. and had helpful briefing and discussion on all of the items that are on our agenda. We did not take any motion. All motion will be taken in this meeting, but I just want to put that on the record so that anyone in the public who's interested, who's looking for further information, may want to take a look at the minutes of those briefing meetings, or the actual recordings are available for your consumption as well. And then I will also note that we do allow for public comment in our meetings, and information for sharing public comment electronically is presented I guess online at our website, and that needs to be submitted by 5 p.m. usually by noon of the day of our board meetings, and I've gotten confirmation from the staff that no electronic public comment has been submitted for the agenda items today. So we will go ahead and turn to that first agenda item, which is the approval of minutes. You have the minutes in your board packets, has a chance to take a look at them over the last couple of days. Are there any questions or comments about the minutes? And if not, I'd be looking for a motion for approval.
Madam Chair, I would move that we approve the minutes as they were delivered to board members.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
This is Kyle Stevens. I'll second it. Oh.
I think, well, we enthusiastically seconded by several folks. Spencer Jones got in there first. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Dana Van Horn?
Aye.
All right, thank you. The minutes are approved. Moving into our projects for the day, we have two feasibility reports to review and take action on. The first is RE 481, Peterson Pipeline Association, which is in Morgan, board member Kyle Stevens area, and Brad Caldwell will be doing the presentation on this one. And and we believe that Ben Session is online, board president for the association.
Yes, I am present.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, Brad.
All right, Madam Chair and the board. So for the summary, the project aims to connect an existing culinary well to the Peterson pipeline system by installing 1,200 feet of 8-inch PVC pipe and constructing a dedicated well house. The applicant serves 161 residential connections and an additional commercial, industrial, and institutional connections. The existing water system, which includes a 300 gallon per minute well and a 250,000 gallon storage tank, does not meet the Division of Drinking Water's requirement for a minimum of 2 sources for systems with over 100 connections. A temporary exemption was granted, and construction of a second well with a target flow rate of 50 gallons per minute began in March of 2024. This project is crucial for regulatory compliance. And I have a few photos to show you. Here is the project area map where it will go. It'll go off the highway in Peterson City. Here is the road with where the pipe will be installed, and that is the current access road and easement. Here is the well site where it will be drilled when I went out and we did a site investigation. And then here's a picture that Ben sent over where they were drilling the well. And okay, so staff recommends the board authorize 85% of the project cost up to $882,000, and that the project be purchased at 0% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $35,300. And that is staff's report.
Thank you, Brad. Before we go to the board, Mr. Sessions, do you have any information that you'd like to share as we consider this application?
Sure. No, just we're wanting to get in compliance with the Division of Drinking Water. We've needed a second well for over 20 years now, and we're finally making that progress. And no, I appreciate your support and willingness to help us with this. But no, we are motivated to get this done and get a redundant source for our system.
Great, thank you. All right, to the board, any questions or comments? Kyle Stevens.
I'll be prepared to make a motion, but before I do that, I have a question I should have asked earlier in the briefing meeting. But in your write-up, Brad, it indicates that there's 161 residential connections and then 90 are on secondary water. What are the other 71 doing for watering their lawns and gardens? Do you know? Or Mr. Sessions, maybe you could answer that.
Yeah, I think that's a better question for Ben.
They use culinary water to water their lawns.
Is there any effort in progress to convert those over to a secondary system, or is that possible?
Majority of the secondary systems are maxed out with membership, so that there really isn't much opportunity to gain membership there. Some of the newer homeowners there in Whittier Estates, which is close to the new well being drilled, they have gained secondary water rights there for when the land was developed, was transferred to them. But we are working on a water conservation plan as well currently to help encourage water conservation and reduction in our use of water in the system.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. And that is a motion that the board authorize 85% of the project cost up to $882,000, and that the project be purchased at 0% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $35,300.
All right, thank you. Second? Is there a second? Okay, thank you. Moved by Kyle Stevens and seconded by Mike Davis. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Oh, Dana. Apologies, Dana. Dana, what is your vote on this?
Aye.
All right. All right. I will move then that application or that authorization is approved. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to Davis and Weber County's Canal Company, RE 483. This is also in Kyle Stevens' area of Davis County. And Mr. Rick Smith, the general manager for the company, is with us today. And Ben Merrett will be doing the presentation.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'll come back to that map in just a minute. The Davis and Weber County Canal Company is before us today. They have a proposed project which is located in Sunset City in Davis County. The Davis and Weber County's Canal Company was organized in 1884. They deliver approximately 60,000 acre-feet of water annually to about 40,000 acres of ag area. They have about 16,000 secondary irrigation connections and approximately 9,000 acres of farm ground. The current canal, which you see a photo of here, it was completed somewhere between 1960 and 1970 with the completion of I-15 in Davis County. Yeah, so the canal is approximately 50-ish years old, or I guess, yeah, about 50 years old. The applicant has a project they're bringing for us today. They'd like to enclose approximately 2,600 feet of this canal, which is open concrete lined, with 8x7 precast box culvert. And this will be placed between approximately 2150 North and 1600 North and Sunset, which will be adjacent to I-15 and to Hill Air Force Base. You can see a picture of the canal here. This is located again next to I-15, and we've got a couple of pictures just for you to look at. So this project is being pursued now to make way for a project that UDOT is pursuing with I-15. They are doing work on 1800 North and Sunset and are looking to actually move I-15 in the future years. And in order to do that, they need to, they're exchanging ground with the military, what is for MIDA, what does MIDA stand for again? Military Installation Development Authority. And the canal is currently sitting on ground that will be converted to MIDA's ownership, and then MIDA will in turn. There's a pending MOU where they will deed that ground to the Davis and Weber County's Canal Company to make way for a housing development that they're wanting to build on their ground. So this project is being funded partially by MIDA to make way for that purpose, and. And the cost breakdown is shown here. They're looking to get 42.5% of the project cost from the Board of Water Resources. As I said, MIDA is contributing about 50% to the project. Staff recommends that the board authorize 42.5% of the project cost up to $3.2 million, and that the project be purchased at 1.95% interest over 30 years with annual payments of approximately $141,900. And that's staff's report.
Thank you, Ben. Mr. Smith, do you have anything that you'd like to share with the board?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, great.
I did watch your work meeting, and I know there was several questions, so hopefully I can answer some of those questions right now. So again, our canal was there pre-1900. I-15 came in and said, hey, we need to relocate you. So in the 1960s, they moved us right along the east edge. If not, our canal would be right down the middle of I-15. So that's where we lied. I have 1898 deeds, if that helps you any. So from there, we've been sitting there since 1960s, basically. And so now there's two different UDOT projects. Sorry, there's a lot of history here. 5600 South is a whole kind of reconfiguration there by Hill Air Force Base Museum, if you're familiar with the area, as well as a whole new interchange at 1800 North. Both those projects are impacting us. So right now, UDOT is in the process of relocating our canal, 3,000 feet of box culvert. They've done about 90% of that. The rest of it will be happening this upcoming winter. So that's about $5 million plus that UDOT had to pay to relocate us because of conflicts with their different projects. With that, 1800 North is going out to bid this year, and it'll be constructed over the next 2 or 3 years, up to about 2027, 2028. That will create a box culvert at 1800 North, and then they will also replace the old box culvert at current I-15 with a new box culvert for us. So UDOT does have some skin in the game there. I tried to influence and have them do all of it, but that was not in the cards. With that, we did talk to MIDA. So again, that's the other portion of it. They're shifting into Hill Air Force Base and taking some of MIDA's potential development property and swapping. They're doing a land swap. So with that land swap, if we stay there, we're bisecting their property. So for a win-win situation, we said, hey, because one idea MIDA is like, well, we're just going to leave you. So we'd be an open canal right next to thousands of residential, high-rise type situation. And they would want to use their property to the east of us, so we'd have multiple canal crossings. So again, there's a lot of story behind that. So we negotiated with MIDA. Again, we wanted everyone to pay 100%, and we had to pay 0, but we negotiated a 50-50 swap. I have final documents. Hopefully in the next month or so, we'll sign this MOU with MIDA to pay a 50% of that total investment. So with that, again, we're potentially looking at this fall, due to the timelines and all the costs that come with this. We're thinking we could do some synergy with UDOT, which again is still in negotiation, to do 90% of this work next fall, so 2025 to 2026. Again, it's not a cheap endeavor, and it's quite expensive and difficult to manufacture 2,600 feet of box culvert. So we are in negotiations there. Trying to think if there's anything else I need to answer. Going back to saved water, again, that was our best estimate. We typically do these water smart grants. So using that number, that's based on some field measurements by ourselves, as well as Bureau of Reclamation came out and confirmed our numbers. And so we've used that number on all of our different grant applications. So that is an assumed water savings. And again, that water savings is keeping water in our reservoirs and not lost the system. If you know that area, it's very sandy, blow sand type material. And so they used to call Hill Air Force Base Sand Hill. And again, if there's a leak, which we're not going to say there is or is not, that water just disappears in that sand. So hopefully that helps. The other question I think was the additional distance. It's roughly 150 to 200 feet just because of that slight curve that we're putting into it. So it's not a huge difference, but again, that's part of the negotiation to maximize MIDA's development property and also get them on board as a partner. So hopefully that answers 95% of your questions.
Thank you. Great context. Appreciate that. Questions or comments, Kyle?
Rick, you may or may not know the answer to this, but what's caused UDOT to have to realign I-15 through that area?
I don't know exact why, but my assumption is so they can build that interchange offline and then move the I-15 to configure everything, if that makes sense. They can build it all offline and then move the I-15 traffic.
So it has less impact on traffic flow.
Yeah, otherwise they'd have to tear up existing I-15 to build the interchange and then reroute.
So there will be an actual interchange at 1800 North.
There's a whole new interchange. It's
in addition to
$90 million project, I think.
In addition to the one that they're doing at 5600.
Right.
In Roy.
Right.
Okay.
And this project does continue and goes west and impacts our secondary system, which will be another application we've already submitted, and we'll talk in another month.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, with that, Madam Chair,
we have, I think, one more question.
Me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kyle. Yeah, one more question.
I didn't notice.
So, Rick, has there been any estimate on how much increased depletion there might be out of this?
Increased depletion?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, our saved water is, again, it's shareholder. We have a lot of storage rights.
Right, so it stays in the storage.
Stays in storage and or, as you well know, we've been discharging all winter long and this spring because of excess water this last year.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you, thank you.
Now I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
And that would be move that the board authorize 42.5% of the project cost up to $3,200,000, and that the project be purchased at 1.95% interest over 30 years with annual payments of approximately $141,900.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Seconded by Mike Davis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Dana Van Horn?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Rule that authorization is approved. Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Moving into the committal of funds, we have 4 committal of funds projects on our agenda today. The first is RM056, the Centerville Deuel Creek Irrigation Company, again in Kyle Stevens' area, and Ben is going to do the presentation on this one as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Centerville Deuel Creek Irrigation Company, they've got a service area in Centerville, which is north of Bountiful and south of Farmington. They are wanting to do a project where they're installing 2,300 approximately secondary water meters. They received an ARPA grant from the Board of Water Resources of $5 million. They've also received a small system secondary metering grant from the Board of Water Resources for $1,034,000. And this section is for the loan which they have applied for, or the purchase agreement, and they've fulfilled all the requirements of the board for that project and are ready for the board's consideration of committal of funds. That being said, staff recommends that the board commit 25.5% of the project cost, up to $2,199,000, and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 15 years, with annual payments of approximately $158,600. That's staff's report.
All right, thank you, Ben. We do not require the applicants to be present at the committal of funds, and my understanding is that there are no applicants today, or with us today. So we'll go to the board for questions and comments. Or comments? See, none. I would be looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion. That is the motion that the board commit 25.5% of the project cost up to $2,191,000, and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $158,600.
All right. It sounds like we need to just make sure we restate that motion before we have the second by Randy Crozier.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just for $2,199,000, not 91.
Oh, excuse me.
All right, thank you for that clarification. So I assume, Randy, that your second covers that clarification. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, Dana Van Horn?
Aye.
All right, thank you. That committal of funds has been approved. Thank you, Ben. Next is RE 480 West Cache Irrigation Company. This is in Charles Holmgren's area. Ethan Stayner will be doing the presentation, and I do believe that we have some folks available or attending. Looks like we have Steve Wood with Sunrise Engineering, Dale Buxton, secretary to the board, and we'll clear this up after the presentation, but we potentially have VP Mike Spackman and President Sid Monk. Thank you, Ethan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. West Cache Irrigation Company, they, as discussed in the briefing meeting, they have the diversion up in Idaho with the Idaho water right, but they serve all their folks in Cache County, and this one's coming from the revolving construction fund. We authorized this back in March, and so I'll just show this map. We showed this back then and then again in the presentation in May, but we have, I wonder if I can move we have the large yellow landslide event that was due to liquefaction, and then these blue and red that they have somewhat regular problems with, but with unstable material that they had material in the canal the same time when this large event happened, which prompted them contacting us for funds. And so it's just impacting their canal and all their shareholders' ability to get water for the irrigation season. And so the purpose of this project is to excavate in and around the applicant's main canal and to clear out debris from recent landslides and make some small improvements to the access road there. The proposed project is located 4 miles north of Preston in Franklin County, Idaho. And then just a little bit of background. Due to some heavy precipitation and some previous snow in February, there were those landslides, and all their shareholders are affected by it as they're all downstream of, as this is just downstream of their diversion, so all their shareholders are affected by it. And so they're requesting assistance at this time just to remove all the debris, and I imagine they're probably, with the emergency nature of this, done or very close to done with removing that as we went up in April and saw the progress, and they already had made some pretty great progress, and we even showed some of those photos at the last board meeting. But to get into the recommendation, the staff recommends the board commit 85% of the project cost up to $425,000, and that the project be purchased at 0% interest over 20 years with annual payments of approximately $21,300. That is staff's report.
Great, thank you, Ethan. As I mentioned, I do believe that we have the applicants with us participating virtually. Would you like to share anything with the board?
This is Dale Buxton, the secretary for the company. I'm not sure if we've got Mike and Sid here to join us, and I don't know if they've got any comments that they wanted to add, but we appreciate the board's consideration of this. We have been able to complete the cleaning of the canal, have reconstructed the road and the bank beside it. We are into our irrigation season, so things are working as well. We've been able to fund it from excess cash that we had on hand, but look to replenish that with the board's the approval of this loan. So that's largely where we're at this point, and the irrigation season's going along well so far.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Buxton. Are there questions from the board? Any comments on this one? All right, seeing none, I would be looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, I will move the board commit 85% of the project cost up to $425,000, and that the project be purchased at 0% interest over 20 years with annual payments of approximately $21,300.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, seconded by Kyle Stevens, also supported by several other members. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Dana Van Horn?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Rule that motion passes, and this committal of funds is approved. Next is RM 115, Davis and Weber County's Canal Company. Mr. Smith is here, and we've got Tom doing our presentation, and of course this is in Kyle Stevens' area.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Davis Weber County's Canal Company are in the midst of their secondary meter project. In round one, the board committed $10 million in ARPA grants and $3.6 million or so in loans. For the second round of funding, the board's already committed $5.124 million. I'll put that there. So in the ARPA funds, and at that time you authorized the loan funds of up to $1.869 million. So we're ready at this time to proceed with a committal of funds for the loan portion of the second round of funding. So staff recommends the board commit 25.5% of the project cost up to $1,869,000, and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $134,800. That's staff's report.
All right, thank you, Tom. I understand that this committal is consistent with the original authorization. Mr. Smith, do you have anything else to share with the board as we consider this?
No, we're just going gangbusters, so do you have any questions?
Yeah, great. So on that note, any questions for Mr. Smith or Ben, or any comments generally? Go ahead, yeah, please.
Rick.
Tom.
Oh, excuse me. Did I?
Oh, no, excuse me, no. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I wondered if I was made a mistake here again. Refresh our memory, if you will, how many meters you are responsible for that to get installed, and what your current status is?
So at the beginning, roughly there was 13,000 that we needed to meter. So we have roughly 17,000 total connections. Those first 4,000 were metered because of either development and or previous projects that we did. So since we got money in October of 22, we've installed roughly 3,700 meters. Has spent over $9 million in a year and a half.
Okay, thank you for that clarification and bringing us up to speed. and I didn't realize this until just now, that I live in Kaysville, so I maybe need to declare a conflict of interest and recuse myself from making a motion or voting on this situation, because I am a beneficiary of, and the meters were installed and they're working well in our area, so.
Mr. Stevens is metered already. He was in phase 1, just so you know.
All right. Thank you for.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
did
go.
you charge him double?
I think before we go to that motion, I think we have at least one more question, and then thank you, Vice Chair, for making the motion when it comes time.
I just wanted
ahead.
a general comment to say thank you. I know it's a lot of work, and on the front end, on a different job, we knew that it was going to be a lot of work. You guys have done great, so thanks.
Thanks. We're still fielding calls for the ones we installed this winter.
Great. All right. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead.
Rick, I just had a question on how are you finding the availability of your meters? How's the supply chain been for you?
Initially, it's been not too great, but as of late, it's doing much better. So we have roughly about 1,000 jumpers out there of the 3,700 that we installed, but the meters are starting to come, as well as AMI. So we expect to be catching up and be ready for this next phase.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Looking for a motion, please.
Madam Chair, I make the motion that the board commit 25.5% of the project cost up to $1,869,000, and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $134,800.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, seconded by Brian Steed. Any discussion to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Dana Van Horn?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Rule that motion passes and that committal of funds for Davis and Weber County's Canal Company is approved. Our final committal of funds is RM092.
Mr. Chair, sorry. May I ask one more
yes,
thing?
please. Sure.
I saw your previous discussion. We are open to other grant funding if you would like to provide more. So we roughly have a $40 million project, so $15 million is great, but not even close to the 70% like everybody else has.
Great. Great.
So thanks.
Thank you for sharing that, putting it on the record, and more to come around that. Thank you. All right, moving on to RM092, Monroe City. That's in Blaine, Ibsen's area, and Brad will be doing the presentation on this one.
All right, Madam
Oh,
Chair.
and again, just for the record, will note again that in these committal of funds, we do not require the applicants to attend, and it's my understanding that there are no applicants in attendance. Right?
Correct.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay. So this project is to purchase and install approximately 833 secondary meters and about 10 agricultural meters, and no grant funding will be used for the agricultural meters. And this committal of funds is just for the loan portion in the form of a bond. And so staff recommends the board commit 26.5% of the project cost up to $780,000 as a loan, and then the bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $61,000, and that is including reserves.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments on this one? And seeing none, I would look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the board commit 26.5% of the project cost up to $780,000 as a loan, and that the bonded indebtedness be returned at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $61,000, including reserves.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right, seconded by Spencer Jones. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Dana Van Horn?
Aye.
Great, thank you. That motion passes, and the committal of funds is approved for Monroe City. Next, we move into our special items, several of these on the agenda today. The first is RE 484, Hates Creek Irrigation Company. This is in Kyle Stevens' area. Ethan Stayner will be doing the presentation, and I believe, or it's my understanding that we have Rodney Hill, who is the general manager and secretary treasurer, for the company, and Kib Jacobson, board president, with us in person. Great. Good to see you, gentlemen. Come on up and join us. And Ethan, we'll look to you for a briefing on this special item.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. For this special item report, we got Hates Creek Irrigation Company. So they're, for this one, looking for a small system secondary meter grant and an increase in loan funds from the Conservation and Development Fund. And for the total project cost is $10,305,000. So initially, back in August 2022, when we had all those ARPA grants being awarded, they were awarded the max $5 million that they could get to install their first 3,000 secondary meters. And so the purpose of this project is to purchase and install approximately 4,000 secondary water meters. So that's an additional 1,000. So they're looking for this grant and the increase in loan funds to get to bump up to 4,000. And so they serve folks in Kaysville and Fruit Heights. So yeah, at the time, like I said, in August there was a limit of $5 million for systems with 7,000 connections or less, and so that's what they could get. And then so these small system secondary meter grants are state funds that are available to cities, towns, or secondary systems with fewer than 5,000 connections. And so they're applying for that to install these additional 1,000 secondary meters. And then we'll look at the cost sharing, and we can see that the $5 million from the ARPA stays the same, and we add on the grant there, and an additional $808,000 in loan fund there, and then their share will go up a little bit to stay even with the percentages. And so staff recommendations, there's going to be two here. The first one for RE 484, staff recommends the board authorize and commit 21.5% of the project cost, up to $2,220,000, as a small system secondary meter grant. And then the second recommendation for the original project is that the staff also recommends the board commit an additional $808,000 and amend the purchase agreement to state that the board will provide 25.5% of the project cost, up to $2,630,000, and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $190,000. And that is staff's report.
Thank you, Ethan. Mr. Hill and Mr. Jacobson, thanks for attending. Do you have any information that you'd like to share with the board? Oh, go ahead and hit that.
It's not.
There we go. Thank you.
Oh, sorry about that. I always like to talk to myself. What Ethan's pretty well shared everything that we've got. The main reason that we're coming back, of course, is the fact that we have a little better than 4,000 connections, and we ran into a small roadblock called $5 million cap, and so therefore we're 1,000 connections short of being able to pay for and install and do all that type of thing. So it was recommended. We've consulted with the people in the division here, and it was recommended that we go this direction, and so we agree. And so our board has passed that resolution, and we do have the ability to finish it out and do what we need to do.
Great. All right. Thank you. Does the board have any questions or comments on this project? All right. Seeing none, I think we could entertain a couple of motions.
Madam Chair, I'll make those motions, but before I do that, I do live in Kaysville, but I'm not under this Hates Creek
Yeah,
service
he
irrigation.
lives over the line.
So,
You know,
so I'm able to make the motion, and I'll echo the comments that I made in our previous meeting, and that is to compliment staff and Hates Creek for being forward-thinking and looking at ways that they can optimize and utilize this small system secondary grant program. So with that, first motion, that the board authorize and commit 21.5% of the project cost up to $2,220,000 as a small system secondary meter grant.
Great, thank you.
Didn't want to shortchange you, Rod.
I'm sure glad you changed it, yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Mike Davis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Dana Van Horn?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, that first motion passes.
And the second motion is that the board commit an additional $808,000 and amend the purchase agreement to state the board will provide 25.5% of the project cost up to $2,630,000, and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $190,000.
Great, thank-
Second.
All right, seconded by Randy Crozier. Is there any discussion?
I'm assuming that the minutes will reflect that second one was with project RM012.
Yeah, let's make sure that I assume, Kyle, you're okay with
Yeah,
that
the
clarification?
first motion is RE 484, and the second motion is RM 012.
012. Thank you, Blaine, for pointing that out. And then I assume, Randy, that your second covers that clarification. All right, any discussion? Additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, Board Member Van Horn?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Rule that motion passes. Let's go ahead and move on then to thank you, gentlemen. RL 582, this is Payson City, request for an expansion of scope. Mike Davis, this is in Mike Davis's area. Russell Hadley will be doing our presentation, and do we have anyone participating? Right. All right, it looks like we have here with us virtually Dave Tuckett, who is the city manager, and Travis Jochmison, Public Works probably. So we appreciate you gentlemen joining us. Go ahead and take it away, Russell.
Okay. Madam Chair, members of the board. Okay, this project's in Payson City in Utah County. The purpose of the original project was to upgrade and expand the existing secondary irrigation system by redeveloping an existing well, upgrading its pump, motor, and controls, installing a secondary transmission pipe for new development, installing a secondary pipe to isolate an outdoor recreation complex, and installing secondary water meters. Approximately 4,600 meters were installed. This work has been completed and was under budget by approximately $2.2 million. They did this back before COVID, when prices were still good. They combined it with other city projects, so they used the open roads when they were resurfacing roads, so everybody got projects a little cheaper in Payson then. Okay, in December 2019, the applicant requested to use $700,000 of the remaining funds to replace the Spring Lake pumps and pump station and add some additional amide filters to their system. That work has been completed, and currently there's approximately $1.5 million remaining in project funds. The applicant is requesting to use the remaining funds to purchase and install new shutoff valves throughout the city. The valves will range in size from 4 to 16 inches, and many of the older valves have failed, leak, or just inoperable. There are also numerous newer lines that could benefit from additional shutoff valves being installed. Staff recommends the board allow the remaining project funds to be used for the purchase and installation of shutoff valves. And that is staff's report.
All right. Thank you, Russell, for that report. To the applicants who are participating online, is there, sorry about that. I did not have my microphone on. Thank you, Russell, for that report. And then to the applicants that are participating in this meeting virtually, is there anything that you would like to share with the board?
Yeah, Madam Chair and board members, we just appreciate the time and the effort because we did get a lot of projects done with our original loan, and I guess we were either fortunate or lucky to get, the prices lower than what we thought they were. So we have this extra money, so we thought we would use it to finish off getting some valves in so we can actually shut the system down easier when we have issues. So
Great, thank you. Now I know that I did state your names, but would you mind restating your name and your affiliation for the record?
yeah, I'm Travis Jogumson. I'm the Public Works Director. We have Dave Tuckett, and then our mayor's in with him, and then Cameron, our water superintendent's in with me also. So
excellent. Well, thanks for sharing those comments, and thank you for attending. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Be looking for a motion if not.
Madam Chair, I move the board allow the remaining project funds to be used for the purchase and installation of shutoff valves.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right, seconded by Spencer Jones. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Board Member Van Horn?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes, and the expansion of scope for Payson City has been approved. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on over to a project that is in the area that I represent, RE450 Draper Irrigation Company. Russell Hadley will be doing the presentation, and then we'd also like to welcome Mr. Darren Jensen Peterson. Great to see you today here representing the Draper Irrigation Draper Irrigation Company as CEO. Go ahead, Russell, and share.
Okay, this proposed project is located in Draper and Bluffdale in Salt Lake County. Okay, the purpose of the project is to construct a new pump station, shallow groundwater wells, and water lines to blend effluent from the Jordan Basin Water Reclamation Facility with shallow groundwater for use in the pressurized irrigation system. After the project was authorized, the applicant decided to build the project in 3 phases. The total cost of the project was estimated at $22 million, and the board authorized $18.7 million, or 85% of the project, in July of 2021. The applicant will request committal of funds from the project for each phase as needed. The 3 phases are as follows. Phase 1 is to develop the shallow wells and install almost 10,000 feet of 24 to 30-inch pipeline. The total original estimated cost was $9,570,000. And a $2 million U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Drought Resiliency Grant has been obtained for Phase 1. Phase 2 will consist of constructing the Jordan Basin Reclamation Facility, reuse pump station, and install about 1,000 feet of pipeline. And Phase 3 will be upgrades to the Fort Street pump station. Funds were committed for Phase 1 in May of 2023. However, bids were recently opened for the pipeline installation portion of Phase 1, and the lowest bid was almost $4.3 million higher than the original estimated cost. The shallow well drilling is expected to bid at approximately $2.5 million. The total cost for Phase 1 is now estimated to be $3,870,000. The work for the shallow wells is expected to be bid at the end of June. The project cost estimate for Phase 1 has increased by $4,300,000 from $9,570,000 to $13,870,000. The committed and proposed additional cost sharing are as follows. And as you can see, Board funding now requested at $10,090,000. The grant would be $2 million, and the applicant would provide $1,780,000 for a total of $13,870,000. The board originally committed 67.2% for phase one, up to $6,435,000, and the project was to be purchased at 1% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $292,200. The applicant is requesting an additional $3,655,000 from the board, increasing the amount from $6,435,000 to $10,090,000. Staff recommends the board commit an additional $3,655,000 and amend the purchase agreement to state the board will provide 72.8% of the phase one costs up to $10,090,000, and the project be purchased at 1% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $458,200. The applicant is requesting a repayment period of 30 years. If the board agrees to the applicant's request, it is suggested the board commit an additional $3,655,000 and amend the purchase agreement to state the board will provide 72.8% of the phase one costs up to $10,090,000 and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 30 years with annual payments of approximately $391,000. That is staff's report.
Great, thank you, Russell. Mr. Jensen Peterson, thank you for being here. Do you have any information that you'd like to share with the board?
Yes, please. Thank you, Russell, and thank you, Madam Chair and the board. We do appreciate your time today and hearing this. As you know, we've been working on this project for now over 15 years and finally starting to see kind of, I will say, just kind of the light to be getting started with this project. Over the years, we've been able to place pipe in the ground, and now we're at this big funding project of the big portion of this. Today, we are asking for additional funds to complete at least phase one of this project. As it's been mentioned, we are asking for an additional $3,655,000. This is all due to the rising costs of not only materials but also labor, something that we did not anticipate to be as high when we first asked for our funding. We are confident in this project, and we believe this will be something that not only us, but the state and the entire valley will be proud of when this project is complete. As mentioned by Russell, we are also asking to keep our budget in line with the additional costs needed and to keep our customers' rates reasonable and fair to extend the approved loan from the 25 years to a 30-year repayment, still at the 1% interest. With this extension, and the request means just lower rates for our customers to help fund this project. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. And again, appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Go ahead.
Mr. Jensen Peterson, thanks for being here. My unique role here is I get to speak on behalf of the Great Salt Lake.
Okay.
Looking at this project, I mean, I've got some concerns. First of all, how much pumping on shallow wells will occur? Do you know how much increased water is going to be produced at your wells?
We're looking to increase from the shallow wells roughly around 1,200 acre feet when all shallow wells are completed.
Okay. And how close are those wells to the Jordan River?
Exact feet, I'm not exactly.
Pretty close though, right?
Yeah. Yes. Similar. Yes.
Okay.
Fairly close.
Do we have any idea what this project would be for increased depletions on that water being brought out?
So our goal is, and we've been working with Teresa with the state engineer's office, and we are extremely close to getting a reuse application signed from them that's approved. What our goal is with the reuse application is that we will be submitting a water replacement plan. And so our goal is to not have any impact on the Great Salt Lake with this and send our Utah Lake water down that we would no longer be using in our pressurized irrigation to take the cleaner water from the reuse and then the shallow wells.
And you have that water and committing to it today?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I don't know if this question's for the applicant or for Russell. And Russell, you did share some information with me earlier, and so perhaps I'll just ask you and then ask that the applicant kind of validate the magnitudes. I was trying to wrap my head around what the impacts of the change in repayment going to look like for the water, for the actual connection for the individual payer of this stuff. Russell, could you help me kind of understand under a repayment of $458,000 annually, which is the 25-year term, like what that dollar value looks like versus the 30-year term?
Yes.
Acknowledging this is just, an increase on everyone, pretty large increase from the initial numbers, and as we talked about, inflation's impacting consumers every which way.
Correct.
But just to understand for this particular impact, what's going on.
The payment for 25 years, $458,200, it would be about $4.60 a month increase. And at 30 years, it would be $3.93 a month.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
not too much.
Okay. I mean, again, acknowledging that grocery bills are going up, housing costs are going up and everything else, but that's helpful to understand. Does that sound about right for
That is
your?
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm asking these questions given the conversation that we were having earlier in our briefing meeting around balancing the needs of this particular project, which is important in an area of high growth, with making sure that, as we have requests coming in, that we can meet those requests. And so I appreciate you providing that information. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Madam Chair, just to further clarify that, then what is the current water rate that your customers are paying so that we can compare that to what the increase is?
So are you asking what what each individual customer is being charged?
Yes.
So we're on a tier rate system. We have a base of roughly around 1980. And then we have 6 different categories based on where people live inside the city, whether you're in the main or whether you're on different height levels for pumping costs. And so it can range anywhere. And again, we do have a tier rate anywhere from 0 to 12,000, 12 to, I want to say, 30,000 and so forth. But we're roughly anywhere based on where you live within the area, you're paying anywhere from about $1.70 for that first block, up to $3.30 and change.
And also, if I could add that in the feasibility report, when we looked at the financial feasibility, they were well over the board's affordability guideline by about $10 a month. So now they would be looking at something like maybe $15 over the board's affordability guideline.
Thanks for bringing that up, Russell. You kind of read my mind about trying to remember whether or not we were in an instance of excess affordability before, or the opposite of that. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? I've asked yeah, go ahead.
Your agreement with Teresa, when does that come in? That hasn't been finalized
It has
yet,
not,
correct?
no. So we are in the process of just coming to terms exactly what the state would like to see. We met 3 weeks ago. Teresa indicated there's an easy button.
Okay.
You give us what we want, we're happy to press that easy button.
And I guess I should say the state engineer, sorry, the state engineer.
State engineer. And so we're working through that to kind of make sure that exactly, even knowing that probably by the time we start pumping, applications will look totally different than what they actually look today.
Thanks.
All right. Other questions, comments? Well, this is in my area, and so normally I would make a motion, but since I'm serving as chair, I refrain from making motions. So I've asked my colleague, our vice chair, to jump in for me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm willing to make a motion that the board commit an additional $3,655,000 and amend the purchase agreement to state the board will provide 72.8% of the Phase 1 costs up to $10,090,000, and that the project be purchased at 1% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $458,200.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? All right, seconded by Randy Crozier. Any discussion? Go ahead.
I have one discussion point.
Thank you.
In that the agreement with the state engineer's office is not yet finalized, I'll be voting no on this, but please keep in mind that that's a really big deal to make sure that the Great Salt Lake's made whole. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? I'm delaying just a little bit because my understanding is that our colleague, Board Member Van Horn, got kicked off online. Do we know if she's back?
She said she's trying.
Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
I'm a no.
All right, thank you. I'm trying to do the math on that. Whether or not Board Member Van Horn records a vote.
It would pass regardless.
Yeah, okay.
6-1.
All right.
Yeah.
So all right, so I'm actually going to go ahead and rule that motion passes. Thank you, congratulations, and we'll look forward to continuing to work on this project with you, and just echoing our colleagues' comments around it's a really big deal to do what you're doing.
And
so
if I
thank you.
can also, the Great Salt Lake is just as important to us. We're
Thank
just
you.
constantly looking for an additional water resource, and as you well know, there aren't any.
Thank you.
And so anyhow,
All right.
thank you so much
Great.
for your time today.
Thank you, we appreciate your commitment.
Madam
All right.
Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just curious, what is the level of the Great Salt Lake? Does anybody know today what it is? Ryan, do you?
We
On
might
the
have
south arm,
a couple of experts around maybe that could.
4194.8.
So where's that compared to a year ago?
To a year ago, it's about 5 feet up.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dana, we're sorry that we lost you for a minute. I went ahead and moved forward with the vote, and the Draper Irrigation Company application, application for additional funds did pass. And I went ahead and ruled that passed. I'm sorry that we weren't able to record your vote. Would you like to make any comment on the record regarding Draper Irrigation Company?
No, thank you. But I apologize that I wasn't available. We are getting some of that storm coming up from Mexico Gulf, and the winds are really bad here, and it knocked my internet out. So I had a moment, but it came back. So here I am.
Well, we're glad you're back with us, and no need at all to apologize. Okay, let's go ahead.
And I do. Sorry, I just did want to apologize for being 2 meetings in a row virtually. And once the election's over Tuesday, I'll be all in. So I apologize.
Hey, again, no need to apologize. We appreciate it, and thank you for joining us virtually. Moving on to. Let's see, we're on still in special items, RM008, Hiram City. We've got actually a couple. So we've got the next 3 special items. The remaining 3 special items are all conversion of the ARPA funds. And Ani will be doing the individual presentations, but Marisa's going to go ahead and set up generally what these conversions are.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I will do the setup. Ani will be doing Hiram City and Johnson Park, and I will be doing Paradise Irrigation. So I'm going to be reading from this. This is part of what we have in the reports for these 3 under the project summaries. It's relating to the code that's discussing the option to convert ARPA funds for an alternative project. So I'm just going to read some of that so that we have that on the record. It's similar to what we did with the secondary metering. In Utah Code 73-10-34, subsection 13A, it states that, quote, a secondary water supplier is not required to meter every secondary water connection of the secondary water supplier's system, but shall meter at strategic points of the system as approved by the state engineer, close quote. this is based on certain criteria outlined in subsection 13. The applicants, all of these applicants, have received approval from the state engineer to be exempt from metering every connection and to instead install meters at, quote, strategic locations, close quote, in their system. For suppliers that are exempt from installing meters on every connection, Utah Code 73-10-34.5, subsection 8, indicates that a system that previously received an ARPA grant can convert the grant for a project that will conserve more water than was expected through metering. And this is indicated in that subsection as this, quote, notwithstanding the other provisions of this section, the board may issue a grant to or convert a grant previously issued to a secondary water supplier described in subsection 73-10-3413A, who seeks to meter at strategic points under subsection 73-10-34 subsection 13 from money appropriated under this section to fund a project that is an alternative to metering, such as lining ditches or improving headgates, if the secondary water supplier establishes to the satisfaction of the board that the alternative project will conserve more water than is expected to be conserved through metering. And so that is the basis of the next three projects that they have all filed and worked with the state engineer. They're all approved to be exempt from metering at each connection, and they have to install meters at strategic locations. And so they're now requesting, all three of them, alternative projects to be able to still use some, if not all, of the ARPA funds. I'll turn it over to Ani.
Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and discuss. It's RM008, Hiram City first.
Okay. To use my glasses. The proposed project is located in Hiram City in Cache County. In August of 2022, the board committed $5 million in ARPA grant funds for the applicant to purchase and install 2,300 secondary water meters. In December 2023, the applicant applied for exemption for metering every connection, and that was granted. Based on the applicant's original funding application, installing 2,300 secondary meters would conserve about 345 acre-feet. The applicant is requesting to convert the ARPA funds to fund two projects. And if you look at the map, the first, Project A is in the upper left, and Project B is in the lower right. So Project A includes installing about 11,000 feet of 20-inch pipeline to increase the capacity of the amount of water that can be delivered from the city's water reclamation facility to the secondary system. Due to the existing pipeline sizes from the water reclamation facility to the secondary system, only about 1,000 gallons per minute can be delivered, whereas the water reclamation facility can treat as much as 3,000 gallons per minute. The project cost is estimated to be about $2,892,000. Based on the staff's understanding of Project A, it appears the project will increase capacity for the secondary system, not conserve water. Therefore, the staff does not recommend allowing ARPA funds to be converted for Project A, although we do think it's a good project for the future. Project B includes lining and piping portions of the Hiram Canal. About 740 feet of the canal would be lined with concrete. A typical cross-section of the existing canal is about 12.5 feet wide and 5 feet deep. The walls are 5 feet tall. The project also includes installing about 4,200 feet of 54-inch pipeline to replace a portion of the open canal. Nearly 1 mile of open canal would be lined or piped, reducing seepage and evaporation losses. The project cost is estimated to be about $2,573,000. The analysis for Project B indicates that lining and piping the canal could conserve about 330 acre-feet. Oops, okay. While the analysis of Project B does not indicate that it will conserve more water than is expected to be conserved through metering, if the conserved amounts for both projects are analyzed based on overall cost, Project B would be more cost-effective than installing secondary meters. Staff recommends the board allow the applicant to convert a portion of the ARPA grant funds to line and pipe about 4,900 feet of open canal, and that the contract be amended to state the board will provide 70% of the project cost up to $1,801,000 The remaining $3,199,000 will be returned to the board. And that is staff's report.
Thank you, Ani. I understand Mr. Dan Woodbury is here representing this project. Hi, welcome. Come on up if you don't mind. I should have invited you up earlier. I apologize. And then I also understand that some of your colleagues are participating online. I believe Matthew Holmes, your city engineer, and then Todd Perkins, who is treasurer for the city, are participating online. Mr. Woodbury or any of those folks who are online with us, would you like to share any information with the board?
Yeah, if I can address, is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
My name's Todd Perkins. I'm the treasurer.
Great, thank you.
So yeah, we kind of feel like that's we are gonna, I guess I'm a little confused on what would be conserving. Will it make the residents conserve, or are we using our water more wisely, by that project A? I guess I just would like some clarification on conservation. We are going to bring, I guess one thing that wasn't really stated is that it won't sit, but I guess I don't understand what the difference between piping. This is increasing our pipe capacity. I feel like it's the same thing as improving or piping a canal. It's just, piping our, I guess I just would like some clarification maybe on that.
Sure, and I think it's fair just to make sure that we're able to, hear from you in a way that's most accurate and kind of consistent with what our expectations are, and just for you to be able to speak to that, we can look to our staff to provide a little additional clarification for you on that. I don't know if that would be maybe Marisa or Candace. Can you just re-clarify how the statute and then the rules contemplate this conservation?
And I'll pull up the statute again, and
thank you,
because that's what we're going off. That it says for an alternative, for the ARPA funds to be used for an alternative project, they must. I'm trying to find my spot. Again, this is in the statute. If the secondary water supplier establishes to the satisfaction of the board that the alternative project will conserve more water than is expected to be conserved through metering. And one thing, I don't know that we noted this in the briefing meeting or just now, on the last page of each one of these three reports, we've got the analysis that was submitted by the applicant. And so we've got that, we've got Project A and Project B. And in the analysis by the applicant for Project A, which is increasing the capacity and having larger diameter pipelines, there was no indication given that water was going to be conserved in the analysis itself. Okay. Also, the idea of conservation with lining or piping the canal, Project B, is that there's evaporation losses, there's seepage losses in the canal, and that's also explained in the analysis. And that's kind of a known entity, a known idea. And when you pipe it or line it with concrete, it conserves water because it's not being lost to evaporation, it's not being lost to that system. So in this case, with increasing the capacity to your system, we did not understand, either from the analysis did not indicate that, nor did we understand how that conserved water. And that's why we asked for it to be presented separately, because we didn't want to jeopardize Project B, which on the phone, I didn't have any paperwork when we first discussed this. On the phone, Project B sounded like, a typical project to try to conserve water. Project A did not. It's a good project. There's no denying that. And we have other funds for that. These ARPA funds are very different. They're federal funds that have some very specific requirements of their own. And then the state statute, with what it said in our understanding of that definition, Project A does not conserve water. and that, I don't know how else to.
Marisa, I think that's helpful, at least for me and maybe for the board, and providing some clarification. And on these particular items and with this particular source of funding, there are, again, statutes that statute that we need to follow as a board. We do have a little bit of discretion, and that's where we were trying to see if maybe as a board we have a bit of discretion here, but as I'm hearing it, I'm not sure that we do. But Mr. Perkins, like, given the definitions that Marisa has talked through, are you able to show in some way that project A does meet that type of conservation or that definition of
Water conservation. I guess I leave that up to the engineers, really, Matt and Dan. But I mean, we are picking up Millville City that will add additional water to our reuse program. So obviously it'd be nice to. We're picking up that additional water. It'd be nice to have a pipe that would actually allow for that additional water to be used wisely. But right, maybe it's not ARPA funds that we need to go after. I think in that previous meeting, you kind of talked about maybe there's like a WaterWise grant or something like that may apply here, but.
Okay. I guess to the engineers again, and again, our staff's awesome, and I know that they'll support you in looking for alternatives depending on how where the board lands on this. But coming back to just this question of conservation on Project A, for the engineers, we have our report from staff that we're relying on. Do you have any additional information for us to consider as we're making a decision on conservation for Project A as has been described by Marisa?
So my name is Matt Holmes. I'm city engineer, and I've not been involved completely in this, but I have some understanding of what's been going on. Dan Woodbury's been working more with our water department. Unfortunately, we didn't get any numbers in there to quantify how much we anticipate to save, but it is kind of hard to quantify that amount at this point. Our general thought was that the more of the reuse water we can put in there, the less we're going to be relying on the stream flow, and then be able to divert more of that back to the river flow. Just that 3,000 gallons per minute, if we were to run that for the entire month to charge our pond ahead of our irrigation season, that would be about 400 acre feet that we could put in that pond and have in there even prior to relying on any irrigation water. There are a lot of other benefits, reusing that water, keeping it out of the stream flow. Pollutants and other contaminants would be filtered by the ground before it even gets into any kind of water system. And that's more what we were looking at, was that the more we can put into our irrigation system, the less we have to rely on that stream flow and that storage.
Great. Thank you. Any questions, other questions or comments from the board?
Just a point of.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Mr.
If I might add some clarification,
thank you.
The existing treatment plant at the water reclamation facility has the ability to pump up to the 3,000 gallons a minute, but the pipeline infrastructure, which had been installed long before the treatment plant was built, is limited in its capacity because the 4 and 6 inch diameter lines, they don't dare push more than 1,000 gallons a minute through that. And even at that, they're bursting those 4 and 6 inch lines. So that's why they're requesting. So that would be, a conservation, or being able to use that extra 2,000 gallons per minute just by having the ability to pump that into the system. And as Matt had pointed out, it would conserve that 400 acre feet at the beginning of the season, where they could store that and not rely upon the stream flows to bring that down.
So just a question, is there a reason that wasn't stated in the application? because that is part of the application for the ARPA funds, is to show a conserved amount. And since there wasn't any shown, I'm a little curious if there is a savings, why wasn't that shown in the application?
I thought that description of the 1,000 versus the 3,000 gallons per minute was stated in there.
Madam Chair, if I
That's not a
may.
conserved number.
Sounds like an increase in use.
So you go ahead,
The
please.
definition, the best definition I can come up with conserve is the idea to use less. And the idea with secondary meters and why these ARPA funds that were granted to the state of Utah and the state of Utah granted them for secondary metering is because the idea is that users will use less water when they have meters, and they even just educated how much water they're using, where secondary water has for so long not been metered, not been able to be metered. And so in the original application everyone sent in, they had to show us how much water they expected to conserve across the board from statistics and data from other secondary water suppliers. The installation and use of secondary meters has reduced the use anywhere from 20 to 30+% use. And so we were seeing this only as an increase from 1,000 to 3,000. And I didn't know about the stream flow. That's not in the analysis. That's why I included the analysis, make sure it was in there. Even with that, I'm not understanding how that would help people conserve. To me, that's just holding water somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay.
So can I ask you a question on the concept of reuse generally? Well, and I've got two questions. One on reuse. My guess is you're applying that again to the ground, right? And you're applying it to people's yards and gardens, correct? No, I'm just asking anybody that can answer.
That's correct.
So my guess is there's additional depletion out of that, correct? There's more water lost to the system.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Second question, in the line problem that we've identified, or the lining that we've identified is in Project B, what happens to the saved water?
It eventually will go to the Great Salt Lake. I mean, eventually it will all make its way to the Great Salt Lake.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one point of clarification and a reminder on ARPA funds.
Yeah.
The reason why we were able to justify with the Division of Drinking Water on why we could use ARPA funds, which were specifically to protect drinking water for secondary meters, is that by having secondary systems that provide untreated water, there's less that has to come from the drinking water side of things. And so by reducing that use, that helps to protect our drinking water. So that's another important consideration when we're talking about conserved water, is that it's also a protection of our drinking water as well.
Thank you. All right, are there any other questions or comments?
So
Go ahead.
just
yes,
based
please.
on that statement, then what was stated in the application of being able to increase from, I forget the numbers now, 1,000 to 3,000 or whatever those numbers were, then that is applying to that statement, Director. Is that correct then, that 1,000 to 3,000 of secondary water is then likely on the mirror side reducing the drinking water requirement from 3,000 to 1,000?
Correct.
Is that, I'm asking, am I thinking the right way here? Is that?
That's good. And your question, and how does that play into this conservation, like what we're being asked? But that's a good.
Madam
Put you on the
Chair.
spot, sorry.
Yeah, no,
Madam Chair.
it's a good spot, Madam Chair. What was that?
Director Hassanier, Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure.
And right as you said that, I was thinking that the federal requirement of ARPA funds is to protect drinking water systems, period.
Okay. So
Period.
that's that.
So work was put in by the Division of Water Resources and the Division of Drinking Water. Well, the Utah legislature would like to use it for secondary metering to reduce use for the drought, for the lake, for Great Salt Lake. And so work was done on that to make sure all the way up to the governor's office, there was an understanding that the federal funds are supposed to be to protect drinking water. Here's why we think it can be used for secondary meters because of that. But the statute, the state statute by the legislature says to convert the funds, it must conserve more water than metering at each location. And so to me, I don't distinguish between secondary or culinary. I just more water. So that's why you all get paid the big bucks.
Well, and that's where it does come back to, we have a staff recommendation. We do have some discretion here, but that being said, I think we need to look towards like what we think the statute is asking us around this idea of conservation. Are there any other questions or comments? And I guess I'll say after that, as I go to look for a motion, that's where, for what it's worth, the way I personally am thinking about it now, as the application came into us, and again, my understanding of this idea of conservation for what the state's policy is around this, I'm personally uncomfortable supporting Part A right now, but that's just one person, but I just want to maybe put that on the record. Going back to any more questions or comments from the board. Yeah, please go ahead, Randy.
Madam Chairman, this is an unusual and difficult project, and part of the difficulty lies with the way the application was submitted. And the way the application was submitted, from what I understand with what Marisa has gone through, and I appreciate all that you've done, looking at Project A, it is an expansion of that water. It's not a reduction in the use of water. Now, it could be argued somewhat that it could help reduce the demand on the culinary water side, which I can understand. But in the application and the way that it was submitted, it does not state any of those purposes in the application that was considered or was put forward. And so staff is kind of between a rock and a hard place, as well as a board, because we have to consider what was submitted in the application. And so I believe that our decision today has to be based upon what the application, the way that it was submitted, is how we have to look at that application. I mean, is there an opportunity that maybe you could come back and resubmit in a different way for a different piece of funding? I think there possibly is. But in my opinion, the way that it was submitted is the way that staff has to evaluate that application and how we as a board have to consider it. And so that's my personal feelings of how we have to look at this application today.
Thank you. Well, let's look for a motion then. And
Madam Chair.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, if I may. Along the lines, the idea to try to protect the culinary water is the idea the meters, installing the meters to protect the drinking water reduces the use. Hiram City is not installing meters on the secondary system. So
that's right. Okay.
There's that. Okay. And I'm not trying to be the bad guy. I'm just the one that answers to the auditors and my director and Director Ferry. And I can only go by what the application provided. Yeah. There was also discussion on the phone, and specifically it had to be to the satisfaction of the board. And no numbers were presented that said we're going to use less water by Project A.
Yeah. Thank you. And I mean, I just want to, on this one and every other application that's in here, I just want to give a shout out to the staff. I know that these are, I think someone said, between a rock and a hard spot. These are, I mean, like tough applications to analyze, and just many different dynamics that you're considering. And truly appreciate the work and can see, I mean, I don't know how you could give us any other recommendation than what you've given us, so thank you for that.
And may I say that it's,
Go ahead.
it's a great project, the
Yeah.
other project.
Yeah.
But
You
to
want-
us, it didn't seem it fit the statute for ARPA.
Yeah.
If this were to come back for a loan, that would be, and state funds and those requirements, it would be viewed differently.
Thank you. I think Brian Steve has a.
Madam Chair, a question to the project applicants. What efforts is Hiram City doing? I mean, this is not, you don't want to install secondary meters, and that's absolutely your choice. So what objects or what activities are you pursuing to have reduced water use?
To the end user, to the customers,
Yeah.
to our residents, or I mean, we put stuff out in the newsletter, and like our irrigation doesn't generally come on as early as some of the other users in the state. Those two things are kind of what we've used. Obviously, we put it in the newsletter to conserve water in drought years and things like that. But as far as other than just informing the general public, there's not this quantifiable meters in the ground thing necessarily. It's more educational, I guess.
Thank you. Mr. Woodbury, go ahead, and then we'll need to go to a motion. Please go ahead.
The system itself is being metered at a commitment to Hiram City. They're adding meters at larger meters, tend to be precise. Yeah, they're strategic locations, and the statute states something, for the exemption, that was required to be able to do that. And they've made that commitment on their own dime.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for that clarification. Director Hassenegger.
Just one other thing, Madam Chair, members of the board. I've also, in the conversations I've been in with Hiram, they are metering new connections. This is just, they're not going back.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you.
That's correct.
All right. Let's looking for a motion. Charles Holmgren, this is in your area, so.
Yes, Madam
Look
Chair.
to you for that motion.
And to preface my motion, I think the data the division has received and working within the definitions of state code, I will make a motion with regard only to Project B. And with that, I will motion that the board allow the applicant to convert a portion of the ARPA grant funds to line and pipe about 4,900 feet of open canal, and that the contract be amended to state the board will provide 70% of the project cost up to $1,801,000, and the remaining $3,199,000 will be returned to the board.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right, seconded by Blaine Ibsen. Any discussion to that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Board Member Van Horn?
Aye.
Great, thank you. I rule that motion passes, and the conversion of that specified portion of the ARPA grants has been approved. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Let's move into the next special item, which is RM024. This is a conversion request for Johnson Park Pipeline Company, also in Charles Holmgren's area. And my understanding is that we have participating online Greg Nielsen, who is president for the company. Ani?
Okay, so Johnson Park Pipeline Company. Here's a map of their system. The red lines are the pipe that they're proposing to replace, and other colors have been replaced in the past, near past. So the proposed project is located in North Logan in Cache County. In August of 2022, the board authorized $114,800 in ARPA grant funds for the applicant to purchase and install 76 secondary water meters. In April of 2024, the applicant applied for exemption from metering every connection, and that was granted. The estimated water savings due to metering each residential connection was calculated to be about 44.5 acre feet. The applicant is requesting to convert the ARPA funds to replace about 4,700 feet of pipeline on their secondary system. The pipeline is old, deteriorating, and leaking extensively. Based on their analysis, the pipeline loses almost 152.8 acre feet to leaking over an irrigation period of about 167 days. Based on the analysis, it is the staff's understanding that the alternative project could conserve about 3.5 times more water than installing secondary meters at each connection. Staff recommends the board allow the applicant to convert the ARPA grant funds to install about 4,700 feet of pipeline and commit 70% of the eligible costs up to $114,800. And that is staff's report. Oh, there's that.
Thank you, Ani. To the participant online, do you have any additional information to share with the board?
Hi there. Greg Nelson, the president of Irrigation Company, is here with me. I am Hai-Min Peng, the project engineer of Sunrise Engineering as a representative. So I don't have more information to share, but here to take any comments from the board members.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being available, gentlemen. Does the board have any questions or comments? I'll see none. I would be looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, I will motion the board allow the applicant to convert the ARPA grant funds to install about 4,700 feet of pipeline and commit 70% of the eligible costs up to $114,800.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Mike Davis. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Are there any opposed? Board Member Van Horn?
Aye.
Great. That motion passes, and the conversion of ARPA funds for Johnson Park Pipeline Company has been approved. Thank you. Great. Thank you, Ani. And then the final conversion that we have for consideration is RM064 Paradise Irrigation Company. Again, in Charles Holmgren's area, Marisa is going to do the presentation, and we have with us online Mr. Jason Summers, who is president for the company.
And I appreciate Jason jumping on today. I gave him short notice. It wasn't today, at least it was yesterday. Madam Chair, members of the board, just presenting Paradise Irrigation. The purpose of the original project was to purchase and install about 640 secondary water meters. And the purpose of this funding request is to install 3 meters and a vault. And in August 2022, the board committed $1.908 million in ARPA funds for the installation of the meters. And the applicant it has filed for exempt from metering at each user location. And based on the applicant's original funding application, installing the meters would conserve about 379.5 acre feet. The applicant's requesting to convert the ARPA funds to install real-time source meters at 3 locations on the pressurized system. Their analysis estimates that about 76 acre feet of water will be conserved by being able to isolate leaks on the system and locate water users that use excessive water. While the analysis of the alternative project does not indicate that it will conserve more water than is expected to be conserved through metering, if the conserved amounts for both projects are analyzed based on the overall cost of each, the alternative project would be more cost-effective than installing secondary meters. And then we've got that table in the report showing that the cost per acre foot, if they do the source meters, is about $1,386 per acre foot. By installing all the 440 secondary meters, the cost per acre foot of savings is just over $5,000. So the staff is recommending that the board reauthorize 70% of the project costs up to $105,350,000 and state that all grant requirements must be completed by July 15th, 2024, or the project will be withdrawn from further consideration by the board. However, if the board does reauthorize $105,350, the remaining $1,802,650 will be returned to the board. That's staff's report.
Thank you, Marisa. Mr. Summers, do you have any information to share with the board before we go to questions?
No, I do not. I just appreciate the help from the Board of Water Resources and Marissa for helping us prepare this. Thank you.
All right, thank you for participating. Questions or comments from the board? Go ahead, Brian.
For the record, I love Wagyu beef as well, so I appreciate that. Question for staff or for the project applicant. I'm confused. So do we have any indication of how much water this might save?
The source meters,
Yeah.
about 76 acre feet
Okay.
overall.
Overall?
Yeah. And installing secondary meters was over 300 something. We've got, yeah, 379. So we've got that table on the bottom of the second page of the
Right.
report.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Charles Holmgren.
Madam Chair, I will motion the board reauthorize 70% of the project cost to $105,350 and state that all grant requirements must be completed by July 15th, 2024, or the project will be withdrawn from further consideration by the board. The remaining $1,802,650 will be returned to the board.
Second.
Can we just restate the amounts in that motion? The remaining.
Well, Madam Chair, there
Yeah,
were,
that's- yeah.
there were
Yeah, sorry, it's
conflicting
tricky.
numbers on two different pages. I was informed that the first page, the title page, was the correct amount.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So the motion stands as was originally stated, and I assume that the second applies to the motion as originally stated. Any discussion to that motion? I'll just reiterate. I mean, it's in the motion, but that July 15th date is absolutely critical because we need to have all those requirements met by that date to make sure that these funds get deployed and that they are not lost out on for use in water conservation. So they could be deployed to another project if necessary, but if we go past that date, we're not going to be able to put those funds to good use either in this project or another project. And so it's as part of the discussion, want to reiterate how important that date is for us. And again, it's part of the motion, so the project will be withdrawn if this motion passes and that date's not met. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Board Member Van Horn? Oh, you think you're on mute, but we saw your hand go up, which we think is an approval. So I'll rule that that motion passes. And
thank you. Sorry.
Appreciate that. I'll rule that that motion passes. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Marisa. All right, let's move on to the withdrawals. Board members, we have a list of withdrawals on our agenda, Marisa will be giving us a briefing, but I'll remind everyone that we have the details for each and every one of these withdrawals in our board information, which we have had some time to review, and then we also were given the opportunity to ask questions during the briefing meeting, and we can also ask questions during this meeting if any of us have any questions or concerns about these individual withdrawals. But I would like to move towards a single motion rather than considering these individually. And so with that, I'll turn the time over to Marisa.
I logged myself out. Can you share the spreadsheet with the release, the withdrawal, or not? Or Shalane, that withdrawal list?
I have that, but I don't have the Google Meet.
Yeah.
Oh.
We have,
Are you on Google Meet?
yeah.
Okay.
Marisa, we have in front of us, we
Yeah.
have, do you need to
You've
speak?
got that. See, I don't. Well, okay.
So we have,
And we discussed
do you
some of
wanna
the
take one of ours and we
details
can share?
in the briefing meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was,
right.
it's more the.
And again, what we're looking at is just a
Yeah.
summary of the information that is contained in
Yeah.
our report. So we have all this information is in the public information that's been posted
Yes.
online. This is
Thank
just a
you.
summary of
And
the
Shalane-
individual.
Shalane put notes for me of what I was looking for, like right
Excellent.
in this 1/2 second, she did that.
Thank you.
So there are 23 funding applications that are being withdrawn. Of those 23, 16 of them signed and sent us a release of funds form for various reasons. Most of them filed for exemption from metering at every location, and so they released the funds back to the board. There were 7 that did not get release forms back to us or any information otherwise by May 17th. There were discussions on the phone to 5 of those. 2 of them never responded to us, but we had heard through their engineer or in earlier discussions with them, they probably weren't going to meter for various reasons or didn't have time to get it done, and they weren't going to use the funds. So that's the majority of what I was concerned about, just kind of getting across. So there's various reasons why they're not using the funds. Most of these have filed for exemption and have been approved. They don't have to be exempt from the state engineer in order to release the funds. And so with that, we would ask the board to, I think Blaine knows, that all of the projects that are listed be withdrawn from further consideration from the board.
Great, thank you. Before we go to questions, or comments, I will just point out that this means if the board or if the department's recommendation is approved by the board, this means that there will be a significant amount of funding that becomes available. And we have consulted with the Attorney General about a process for reawarding those funds. And it's our understanding that the statute does require a formal application period. We need to balance that with the fact that the time is running out on getting these funds deployed. And so what I'd like to do is look towards a special meeting of our board ASAP. We'll work with the staff on scheduling that special meeting. We would do it via Zoom to set a short application period with pretty specific criteria to make sure that that we're able to meet the deadlines to get funds under contract and deployed. So just wanted to put that context out there and on the record because it's related to what we're working on here, but we will do a public notice for that meeting and then of course have a public forum via Zoom for that meeting. Any questions or comments on what I just stated or any of the individual withdrawals that we're reviewing or generally the process of withdrawals.
Madam Chair, what time frame do we anticipate acting on?
Yeah, I think I'd have to look to staff on this, but my understanding is we need to have something pretty quick within the next week, potentially. Shalene's going to come up and...
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think if there are sufficient board members available, we should look to do a board meeting towards the end of next week.
Okay.
Allow us time to prepare. And I mean, we've got an application already to set up what that criteria would be that we would post online. And then hopefully have an application period the following week so that we could get this done, hopefully have those applications in and ready to present to you in August at your next board meeting. So that would be staff's recommendation. If there can be sufficient board participation to have a quorum and a vote to take action, give us time to publish notice. I think we'd be looking for an electronic meeting, preferably next Friday, next Thursday or Friday if available, if enough staff members or board members are available. And we'd work early next week to get this ready to go.
All right, thank you. So that I think that provides clarity on the timing, and I would just say let's just make it work Thursday or Friday. Between all of us, we'll work on getting a quorum, and it might mean that we meet early in the morning or maybe later, but we'll take care of this ASAP, and just want to make sure that we respect the process and also the statute, what the statute requires
I think,
of us.
Chair, if you can get us your availability, we'll get out to the board and ask who could be available at various times.
Madam Chair, I think
ahead.
that Charles Holmgren was pushing for July 4th.
Okay, No. Please, no. I mean, I would like to celebrate with fireworks when this is all done eventually.
That will be a
but
celebration. Okay. Well, let's push to have this, not push, I mean, it's almost like, it's not even that we're pushing, we need to just get this taken care of ahead of July 4th, and stay tuned. Thank you. All right, go ahead, Marisa, yeah.
Madam Chair, just as part of the discussion, part of the difficulties we've had in getting things under contract is requirements not being ready. And there are several requirements that, while we do have requirements listed on the application, there's one in particular that is not listed, and that's having a unique entity identification number. That process can take from weeks to months, and we don't have time to wait for someone to do that. So that and a couple others that are something that they have to have when they submit the application. We will not have time to do that. And so water conservation plan already approved by the division, already adopted, things that just take a lot of time.
Great. Great. Well, thank you. Well, so let's just make sure we'll have to look to you all. I mean, you've given us those examples, but just look to the staff to make sure that, you know, your recommendations around the timing of the application period, and then also the additional criteria that will need to be on the application to make sure that we don't run into any delays. We'll look to you to provide that to us and be part of the deliberations. Thank you. All right.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, please.
If I might be so bold as to propose that we either hold a meeting Friday at 8 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon on Friday, and let you coordinate with staff and choose one of those times. That way, at least we have an idea of what time we would be looking at, either 8 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon.
Okay. Are you saying narrow down to 8 or 3, or just go ahead and pick an 8 or a 3 right now?
I'll just so everyone knows, I'll be on a plane pretty much all day on Friday.
Okay.
So I could do it Thursday, but not Friday.
Okay.
And I will be at Panguitch Lake on a family vacation, so I'll be out of commission.
And I would be available at 8 a.m., but not 3 p.m.
Why don't we, I I mean, I lean towards an 8 a.m. meeting on Friday, but before we 100% confirm that, let's just make sure we work with the staff to see that we have a quorum at that time. But that's what we'll lean towards. And for those of us, or for those of you that are unable to participate, I am available anytime to talk through and carry your sentiments into the meeting. And I know that Mike is as well, and the staff. So.
And if not next week, we can go to Charles' house.
That's right. I know. I'm kind of into this 4th of July thing. All right. All right. Any other questions?
Do we still have a motion?
Yeah, I think we're ready for a motion. If there's no questions about the specific projects that we're looking to withdraw, I think we should move on. And
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion, and I'm going to go in the order, rather than the handout this morning, I'm going to go in the order of the projects as published in the agenda.
Thank you.
For this meeting. So be easier for Shannon probably to track with these, the published order in the agenda. So if all of you can go and keep me straight, I make a motion that the following projects be withdrawn from consideration by the board. Project RM010, Richmond Irrigation and Power Company. Project RM025, Greenbelt Irrigation Company. Project RM027, Castle Valley Special Service District. Project RM030, North Logan Sprinkling Company. Project RM032, Horseshoe Irrigation Company. Project RM041, Liberty Irrigation Association. Project RM047, Fountain Green Irrigation Company. Project RM054, Smithfield Irrigation Company. Project RM055, North Summit Pressurized Irrigation Company. Project RM057, Birch Creek Irrigation Company. Project RM062, Nephi Irrigation Company. Project RM063, Center Hyde Park Water Pipeline Company. Project RM066, 17th North Water Users Incorporated. Project RM069, Leeds Water Company. Project RM072, Green Canyon Sprinkler Company. Project RM075, Loa Town. Project RM079, Center Creek Irrigation Company. Project RM087, Wanship Irrigation Company Number 2. Project RM089, Fillmore Water Users Association. Project RM094, Corn Creek Irrigation Company. Project RM096, Panguitch City. Project RM097, Sand Creek Irrigation Company. Project RM098, Minersville Reservoir and Irrigation Company.
all right, thank you. Is there a second to Blaine Ipson's motion?
I will second that.
Great, seconded by Spencer Jones. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Board Member Van Horn?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Motion passes, and the projects as identified are withdrawn. Great. Move over to Candace Hassenjager for our director's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's already been a long meeting, so we will move through this quickly. As maybe many of you know, this week was interim week, so I felt like Tuesday was a Monday for sure, because we had Monday as a holiday, and I had a 8:30 presentation up at the legislative, the Natural Resource, Agriculture, and Environment Appropriations Committee on conservation incentives. So I was able to give an update on all of the efforts regarding secondary metering and all the work that's being done and the work of the board getting the funds out there, and of course staff and all the great work that they're doing. Also talked about landscape incentives. Currently we have about 62 cities and counties that are all are all eligible now for state funds, meaning they've adopted water efficiency standards. And our newest eligible city is Monticello, so that was exciting. We are making some updates to the rules that we have in place for that program. And this is in areas where the division is running the program. We're going to increase the incentive rates from $1.50 per square foot to $2 per square foot to match closer to what is being seen in areas where there's also a district providing it. And the conservation team has been working to expand our rebate program offerings from Utah Water Savers, which currently we've been doing smart like toilets and then smart controllers, and we're looking to, and those have been typically residential and looking to expand it into commercial and other areas. And we're also working to develop a home builder recognition program. So home builders have some incentive to build water-wise homes. And then I also got the opportunity at the Legislative Water Development Commission meeting on Tuesday night to present on aqueduct resiliency projects. So $50 million was appropriated in 2023 to help speed up the seismicity resiliency for aqueducts along the Wasatch Front. So we went through an application period, and that $50 million is currently contracted, and one is even already starting construction. We were based in Water Conservancy District, so I was able to share some of those. And I have to say, seeing some of the probabilities for a big earthquake along the Wasatch Front is a little scary. I was like, I felt like I had a knock on wood, but I was able to report on that and all the great work that's going on there. And then we also had mainly Jonathan Jennings. He's our new meteorologist. He helped present on the cloud seeding program and all the work that we're doing there. And they had lots of great questions for him. And we were able to give that presentation again on repeat the next day